Hello and welcome to the HR presentation, also known as APACS 101. During your first week with APACS, you were given the tools necessary for you to effectively teach our classes. This presentation is designed to give you all the additional stuff, all the extra things you need to know about some of our company structures, as well as functioning in Vietnam as a whole. You are now officially part of the APACS family. So whether you're placed at an APACS Leaders or APACS English Center, we're all part of one big happy family. Let's begin with a brief history lesson. APACS started in Hanoi in 2015 with just a handful of teachers. We've since grown to have 100 centers in multiple cities with over 600 teachers, and we're still growing. In addition to all of our lovely centers spread all across Vietnam, we have two head office locations, one in Hanoi and one in Ho Chi Minh City. When you visit these offices, you will see that we have various different departments working tirelessly to keep things running smoothly at APACS: marketing, operations, IT, and so forth. There is, however, one specific department dedicated to the teacher's overall care and support, and that department is called the Faculty Management Division. We're pretty big on acronyms around here, so you will hear people referring to this as FMD. Due to the fact that we have two head office locations, we have two FMD departments as well, one in the north and one in the south. This chart just gives you an idea of the different areas of support you will have during your time here. We have our country director at the very top, followed by our two divisional directors, one for north and one for south. Our departments are teacher management, which is the department you fall under, training, faculty, HR, recruiting, business partnerships, internal marketing, and program. All these areas have department heads, managers, and general staff, and we're all here to support and guide you. Now let's look at the structure at your individual center. The food chain begins with your branch manager. This person is the king or the queen of your branch, which means they have the final say about approving time off, letting you go on business trips, and any possible transfers. The operation leader, cashier, security guards, cleaners, and technical support are all pretty self-explanatory. So let's look at the education consultants. These individuals are responsible for guiding prospective parents to the right level for their kids. So you might interact with them if they bring a trial student to your class. The head of education consultants is their leader. The class managers are going to be your best friends. You will go to them for a wide variety of things. If you need extra materials, if a student's behavior is getting out of hand, if you need to go to the bathroom and need someone to stay in your classroom with your kids. They will even translate for you if you're on the phone with a delivery guy and you don't speak Vietnamese. And of course, their leader is the head of CMs. Your head teacher or your faculty manager is essentially the teacher's leader. They schedule your classes, also approve time off, and they're there to support your overall teaching at the center. So don't be afraid to go to them when you struggle with your iPad or you don't know how to teach a certain component of your lesson. The difference between a head teacher and a faculty manager is that an FM manages a larger center. If your center is big enough, you might also have a senior teacher, and they're kind of second in command to your HT, so feel free to go to them with general questions as well. This slide just gives you a general idea of who to go to depending on your area of concern. If you have a general question, like how do I teach this component of my sapling lesson, or how do I go about asking for time off, that question is for your head teacher or your faculty manager. If you're placed at a newer center and do not yet have one of these, then direct your question to your assistant regional manager. We of course refer to these people as ARMs. The best way to reach out to any of these people is going to be either in person when they're at your center, or to their email address, or Slack. Our APACS email addresses are generally firstname.lastname@apacsenglish.com. If you have an HR-related question about your contract, work permit, salary, or taxes, then those questions are designed for specific people within the Faculty Management Division. Your Faculty Human Resources head or manager will send you a contact list. That way you have an email address for your branch manager, your head teacher, and you know who in FMD is responsible for which area, and you can direct your questions. If your concern is time sensitive, make sure to CC the head of faculty HR. When you're done with 12 wonderful months of teaching at APACS and you're ready to move on to other things, make sure to send your resignation notice to your head teacher or FM, your branch manager, your head of CMs, assistant regional manager, and faculty HR. As I said before, we have two different head office locations. This is the address for the one in the north, and this is the address for the one in the south. Please keep in mind that although the hours you keep as a teacher are working in afternoons and evenings and weekends, the people in the head office work regular business hours, which means we invite you to visit us between 9 and 12 Monday to Friday and 1 and 5:30. Please avoid coming during lunchtime, as it is traditional in Vietnamese culture for people to take a nap during lunch. So if you show up between 12 and 1, we're going to ask you to take a seat on one of our lovely red couches and wait until people are done resting. Now let's talk about setting up digitally. Slack is the universal way in which we communicate in the APAC sphere, and you should have been added to Slack in your first week of training. This is the universal Wi-Fi password. So whether you are at an APAC center in the north or the south, or at any of our head offices, that is the password you should be able to use to get onto the internet. Your APAC's email address should have been provided to you in your second week. If you do not yet have an APAC's email address, let your head teacher or faculty manager know, and they will communicate with IT to make sure you get set up. We encourage you to check your Slack and your APAC's email address at least once a day. Our social media is pretty important to us as we're growing pretty fast. So if you're a social media butterfly, go ahead and add us to your LinkedIn page and take part in some of the social media competitions you'll see posted. Here's a little Slack etiquette for you. On Slack, we have both channels and direct messages. The channels are pretty public forums, so make sure that when you're posting on there, you've thought through whatever it is you want to say. The general channel is for work-related matters. So on that channel, you will see FMD posting certain announcements about programs, holidays, and so forth. The random channel is self-explanatory. People post almost anything on here, whether it's a person looking for a roommate, or someone asking how to get a motorbike license, or even just sharing a teacher joke of the day. Your center channel is specifically for your center, so your HT, FM, or ARM will add you to that one. BIDV is the bank that we bank with. Please keep in mind that there are no actual bank employees on that channel, but it's a way for us to just contain all the bank-related questions into one channel. The time off channel is the one you want to visit if you're looking for someone to cover you because you're sick or going on vacation, or if you're looking to pick up extra hours. There is one for the north and one for the south. The iGarden channel is great if you are going to be teaching iGarden, as iGarden is a different program and they have their specific things that they share there. If you are looking to add yourself to a channel, you can click on where it says channels and it'll drop down a menu of different channels you can choose from. If you're looking to send someone a direct message, click on the plus next to where it says direct messages, type in the person's name and you should be able to find them. Keep in mind that people are creative with their Slack names, so just double check before you send a message to someone, as there may be 5 different Sarahs working for APACS, and you want to make sure you've gotten the right Sarah. The Slack plan that APACS has is limited as to how much information it can retain. This means the more information that is placed in certain channels, the more likely it is to disappear after a certain period of time. This is why we encourage our teachers to respond to threads so that certain conversations and comments are contained in little bubbles. As you can see from the example here, if someone posts something and you want to respond directly to what they said, rather than just writing your comment directly into the channel, hover your mouse over their comment. You have the option to either click on an emoji, or if you click there where it says reply to thread, you can actually give your response over there and it'll all be contained rather than clogging up the channel. Now let's talk about setting up legally. It is important to register with the local police when you move into your accommodation. So whether you choose to live in an apartment, stay in a hotel or a hostel or Airbnb, any of those accommodations have to be registered with the police. The form that is used for this registration is either called a landlord form or just simply police registration. Most landlords who house foreigners are aware of this process, so when you move into your accommodation, if you request this, your landlord should be able to just get the form filled out, they'll make a copy of your passport and your visa or residency card, and they'll register you with the police. The form will get stamped and signed, and then you can take a picture of it, send it to your head teacher or your faculty manager or your ARM, and they will update our records. The process may seem simple enough. However, you may come into contact with a landlord who doesn't understand what you're asking of them or flat out refuses to do it. If you happen to be in this situation, go ahead and get your landlord's name and phone number, give it to someone in FMD or to your CM. They will call your landlord and explain what the process is. Usually if your landlord is someone who just didn't understand because of the language barrier or they're new to housing foreigners, then the process should be simple. We can guide them to do the online registration, which is pretty easy, or to fill out the form and get it done. However, if you're in a situation where a landlord flat out refuses it and they want to cut corners, then they may ask you to actually pay some money in order to get it done. At this point, it'll be up to you whether you want to pay to get the landlord form or if you'd rather move into different accommodation. Either way, it is important for you to get the registration, and we as a company give you 28 days to get this process done. Your landlord form can be used for getting a local CBC or for getting a residency card, and the third reason would be just for our personal records. If you have any confusion or concerns about this, reach out to faculty HR and we will better explain the process to you. Work permit. Some of your expat friends may tell you that you can work in Vietnam teaching English without a work permit. That may be the case for smaller organizations, but as we talked about earlier in the presentation, we have 100 centers, which means we are huge. There is absolutely no way we can have anybody working for us without a work permit. That is why within your first week of training, we ask you to get all your documents handed in so we can begin processing your work permit right away. This means you need to hand in a notarized copy of your university degree, TEFL, get a police check, health check, the photos, and so forth. It may even be necessary for you to get an affidavit for your name if your middle name is missing on your degree or TEFL, or one of your names has been misspelled. We also have very important timelines you must follow to get all this stuff done. If you want to qualify for the startup bonus, you have 14 working days to get all your legalized documents in. Even if you don't want to get the bonus, you still just have 28 days to get your documents in. If you don't do that, 50% of your salary is going to be withheld. And if more time passes, we may consider putting you on contract pause or terminating your contract altogether. Keep in mind that APACS guarantees a work permit for 1 year, and your permit will be reimbursed after 1 year. Residency card. Now, the work permit is something that we require you to get in order to work for us. The residency card is not an obligation. You can reside in Vietnam either on a residency card, a business visa, or a tourist visa. In order to work for APACS, though, we don't allow you to be on a tourist visa. So that leaves you the business visa and the residency card as your options. The residency card is what we recommend, and the process for that is that once your work permit comes out, we will ask you whether you want to apply for the residency card. If you say yes, then we need you to get that landlord form we talked about earlier. You need to be on an APACS business visa, your work permit needs to have come out, and then depending on the region you're in, those are the costs for North or South. If you choose to get the business visa instead, that is fine as well. You have the option to get a 1-year business visa, or you can continue to do visa runs with the 3-month business visa. We just don't encourage that option because it means every 3 months you're going on a visa run, you're spending money on accommodation, on travel, you're looking for someone to cover you, and you're losing money during the time that you're gone. So we strongly recommend the residency card. Keep in mind that both the residency card and the work permit are dependent on your employment with the company. So this means if you leave APACS, both will be canceled. BIDV is the bank that we bank with. The process for this is, on your last day of training, when you sign your contracts, you will also fill out your bank forms. A few days to 1 week later, your bank account will be issued. You will receive communication giving you your bank account number through your email address, which means that from now on, you'll be able to go into any branch with your passport to withdraw money. Unfortunately, you will not be able to get your bank card until your work permit is issued. And the reason this is the case is because last year the government decided that they do not want any bank cards to be issued to a foreigner who does not have proof that they're going to be in the country for 12 months. So how do you provide this proof? After your work permit is issued, you can apply for the residency card or the 1-year visa. Regardless of which one you choose, once you have that, you can take that into a branch show them your residency card or your one-year visa, and then they will allow you to apply for the bank card. Once the bank card is issued, you can pick it up. Depending on the region you're in, if you're in the north, you will pick up the bank card in the branch that you applied. If you're in the south, the Faculty Management Division head office will actually organize the delivery of your card to the head office, which means you will need to go there to pick it up, and they will communicate with you about it. Please note that most BIDV branches operate quite differently from each other. So if you walk into one BIDV branch and have a fairly negative experience, before you get all upset and start yelling at everybody on Slack, go ahead and try going into a different branch and you're likely to have a better experience. You can also always just go on Slack and ask people, hey guys, which BIDV branch do you suggest is the best one for me to go to do my wire transfers or to just withdraw cash in general? Speaking of transfers, you can transfer money back home if you'd like to. Depending on the branch you go to, you may be asked to show them your passport and just the account information for where you want to send the money, or they may ask for more things. So be prepared to provide a copy of your company contract, passport, visa or residency card, payslip, the account number of where you want to send the money to, the bank name and address of where you want to send the money to, and the SWIFT code. Remember again, if the branch you go into says they don't do wire transfers, before you freak out, just go ahead and try a different branch. Most of them should be able to provide this service. Code of conduct. We have a universal code of conduct at APACS, which means we follow the same standard all throughout the country, regardless of which center you're placed at. That being said, you may have a branch manager or head teacher who are a little bit more relaxed or a little bit more strict. So just follow what your leaders say. Your dress code was covered during your training week, but I will go ahead and just go over some of the main points here. Our dress code is business casual, which means for men, you can wear a dress shirt and slacks, and that should be sufficient. For ladies, avoid wearing short shorts or short skirt, no bare midriff, and no exposed shoulders, which means you can wear a sleeveless top, just don't have a strappy dress or top or a strapless dress or top. So if you are going to wear something like that, make sure to have a cardigan over it. Leggings are allowed, however, you need to wear a longer top or dress over them. For both men and women, jeans are allowed as long as they are darker color. I like to call them masquerading as pants. So as long as they're not stonewashed or faded with no rips and tears, they should be fine. Elephant pants are not allowed as they're associated with more of a backpacker, relaxed tourist, and not so much of a serious teacher. Both parties must wear undergarments at all times when teaching at APACS. Hair. Your hair can be dyed any color as long as it's considered a natural color. So if you want to dye your hair black or brown, for example, that should be fine, but once you start to dye your hair fluorescent and unnatural colors, then that'll be a little bit more difficult. So try to be creative with how you style your hair. For men, you can grow your hair long as you start tying it in a bun, and a beard is allowed as long as it is neatly groomed and trimmed. For piercings, you're not allowed any facial piercings while you teach, and then for your ears, limit them to 3 each. Tattoos should not be exposed, so if you have tattoos on your arms, just make sure you wear a long-sleeved shirt or cover them with a tattoo sleeve. Professionalism. Do not smoke in view of any students. I will also add parents to that. Even though a lot of Vietnamese people smoke, they hold teachers to a higher standard. So when you're taking your smoke break, just make sure you're not in view of any of them. The same goes for adult language. Do not discuss any adult topics in the presence of students or parents. You'll be surprised at how many parents actually understand English, so try to keep those topics to a closed room or after hours. Try to keep a sunny and positive and inclusive attitude wherever you go. So if you happen to be grocery shopping during your time off, it's quite all right for you to say hello to one of your students if you run into them. Also, when you are in your free time, partying with your friends, for example, by all means, feel free to be yourself and relax and let loose. However, if you do things that are a little crazy, you may be associated with the company or with your own country. Contracts. On your last day of training, you signed 3 different documents: the expert contract, the teaching agreement, and the labor contract. The expert contract is what allows you to work for us before your work permit comes out. So you're actually an expert during that time, which is why you will notice that your salary is actually stated hourly rather than a monthly salary. Even though this document lasts for 3 months, we would like your work permit to come out as soon as possible. So we'd like you to be on this document for as short a time as possible. Keep in mind, this is the document that actually contains your true start date with us. Your teaching agreement is the document that contains all of the extra information. So your reimbursements are mentioned in there, public holidays, what happens when you're sick, all of those details are covered in the teaching agreement. Your labor contract is the legal document. This is what the government actually cares about, which is why the start date on the labor contract has got to match your work permit. So you are told on the day that you sign your contracts to not date this document. It is because once your work permit is issued, we will put the date of your work permit on this document. Keep in mind that your original start date will always be honored. So for example, if you started working for us on January 1st, your expert contract will say January 1st. Then let's say your work permit comes out on February 1st. Your labor contract will say February 1st. When you're done with 12 months, we as a company will honor that January start date, regardless of what it actually says in your labor contract. All your copies of your contract are eventually given to you. Just keep in mind that we cannot give you a copy of your labor contract until your work permit is issued. So about a month after you start working for us, your expert contract will be mailed back to you at your center, but your labor contract will only come back to you once your work permit is issued. The 10th of the month is payday at Apax, and it is important to note that you're actually paid for the previous month's work. So for example, if you work from January 1st to January 31st, that salary is going to be paid on February 10th. So that means that those first 10 days of February that you worked will actually be in the following month's paycheck. There are exceptions to being paid on the 10th. For example, if it is a public holiday on the 10th, or if the 10th lands on a Saturday, then you're actually going to be paid the next day or the following Monday. The money usually hits your account towards the end of the day, so be prepared to actually only be able to withdraw your money the following day. We encourage teachers to make arrangements for rent, for example, for the 12th or something. That way you have the 11th to get your money out, or if it's a public holiday or something, you have a couple of days to get that money. The table on the right just gives you a breakdown of what happens if you don't work a full month, because a lot of people do not actually start at the beginning of the month. So the example we have here is a teacher who began working for us in July 2017, but they only started a few days into the month. We would take the 22 possible working days of that month, the 19 days actually worked, and then there's 20% tax. You're taxed at 20% before your work permit comes out. That is how you end up with what your final salary is going to be.